Hello, good morning. This is Mike Ash with Caltech. Welcome to Elevated. We will be starting in just a few minutes. Glad you can make your time available today. I think we're going to have a great session. So while you wait for us to start up, introduce yourself in the chat. Say hi. Let us know where you're from. If you want to tell us the kind of projects that you work on, kind of endeavors that you engage in most, add that. This session is recording, so just to let you know. We'll be starting in just a couple of minutes. Welcome. If you've just joined, we'll be starting in a few minutes. This is Elevated, the sessions for accelerating and advancing your skills as a project management professional. We're going to have Nate Cruz here. He's already joined. We're going to start in just a few minutes. Let us know who you are, where you're from. Throw that in the chat. We've got a great session today. So can't wait. We'll just give about one more minute. Folks are still rolling in. Welcome to our Canadian friends in Massachusetts. Or people from California. Glad you can join us. So Nate, I think it's a good idea. We'll start the session. Again, okay. My name is Mike Ash. Welcome. Nate and I are here from Caltech in Pasadena, California. This is a series that we put on called Elevate, Advancing the Art and Science of the Project Professional. You are you're here in our second session with Nate Cruz. We'll talk about unlocking performance outcomes through agility. We had our first session a month before last, and let me tell you a little bit about it, and we're going to get into a few things. I am a part of our group at Caltech. We call the Center for Technology and Management Education. This is the professional development, professional education arm for Caltech. We work with industry on building better systems, help fostering great systems thinking cultures, helping engineers, project professionals advance their careers. That also includes technical marketers, operations teams, and others. We started this series because so many people are asking for different ways to engage than kind of the typical sessions. Rick Hefner, our program director, he should be on shortly. And as I said, I'm here with Nate Cruz, one of our senior lecturers in Agile and leadership and systems engineering. We're going to spend about the next 40 minutes or so talking, and we'll get into question and answer. But I want to help set the stage. So what we mean with the overall series about the art and science of the project professional is we want to create ways for us to use both sides of our brain to accelerate not just our careers, but the outcomes that we're creating in the projects, the programs, and the engagements that we deliver as professionals. I had a 20-year career as a project manager and engagement manager in IBM, Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers. And one of the ways that we threw a lens on for what this program should be is looking at what really makes folks successful, and especially in kind of high stakes projects and the kinds of products and missions that their organizations are in. And that is really about how you pull together the smarts that you have. You're all clever, you're all here, so you must be smart. The emotional intelligence it takes to work with people and organizations and issues and do that thoughtfully, and in the best way to be inclusive and energetic and engaging. And then importantly, how does all stuff work? So when the rubber hits the road, how are we at not just great at executing projects? How are we executing on our company strategy or our mission if you're in a different kind of organization or nonprofit, and others? And so we created this series to help bring these things together. And what we don't want it to be is just a webinar. We have lots of webinars, different places we can get content, but we want to engage with you all in different ways. And you'll see that over the next several weeks and months. So bringing to you case studies and stories, music playlists, analogies to other things, the science behind what's happening in our brains and what's happening in our relationships and interactions. So I wanted to set kind of this stage as a jumping off point. These are the kind of things that we would love for you to keep coming back to in the elevated series. And one of the best ways to think about how to make those things kind of a part of your repertoire and advance yourself as a professional is through the concepts of agility. So I want to turn things over to Nate Cruz, let him introduce himself and take you through this part of the program.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Everybody, hopefully you can hear me. My name is Nate Cruz. Mike, I need to start sharing my slides here for a second.
Yep, you should be ready to go.
Welcome to our session here, talking about Elevate, and specifically around the topic of agility. So I'm going to take off here from where the topic of hand here is insight and unlocking 5 performance outcomes through agility. And first of all, we're going to say what those 5 outcomes are. One is customer intimacy. I think as you look at the behaviors and the interactions of the Agile teams with the customers, you'll see there'll be regular, frequent checkpoints with the customer so that we are working lock in step as we go through and solve problems. Better organizational alignment through agility by going through and making sure that we have a representative member of the team most of your Agile frameworks, improve product delivery through the combination of the two and other things we'll talk about, the two we talked about previously and other things we'll talk about, a better operational learning. So Agile is about learning. It is about going through and doing hackathons and having other educational experiences, and also allowing people to experiment to learn how to do things better through agility and through higher performance. What we do in agility is we send down the decision-making process down to the team level, giving them the ability to learn how to execute on Agile projects effectively. And then after that's done, see what the results are, and working directly with the customer here, our performance increases. And actually the fun and enjoyment of doing work on the Agile projects increases also. So with respect to these 5 topics here, we're gonna have a white paper that'll be coming out with the notes of the presentation to give you the more detailed steps underneath of agility that would be attained by doing these 5 outcomes here. So hold tight on that. I'm going to give you some background information around agility and why I think it supports these 5 what we call the OKRs in the Agile space, which is objectives and key results. So, and looking at the diagram and then the whole tenet of why we're trying to do Elevate, I do recognize and confirm that the capabilities that are listed here as far as executional intelligence, emotional intelligence, and rational intelligence are extremely important for you to maintain, grow, and evolve in your career as a project manager, program manager. However, over the last 5 years or so, but I say, well, agility's been around for 20, but it's been an interesting evolution going on where even if you still work in the waterfall environment, there are some creepings of agility coming in. And actually, when we look at the new PMP, those people getting certified here in the new format, instead of just having the PMBOK as the staple for all the questions coming out of that, there are 3 other Agile reference guides here to demonstrate the fact that even in the waterfall environment, you have to be Agile to some degree. And so I'm going to add on to here that another skill set you need to be able to possess is to deliver results collaboratively through value-based solutions for the problems and opportunities of interest to your clients and stakeholders here. That's something that I'll be talking about in more detail as we go forward here. Those of you that have questions, please save those to the end. If you know the slide you want me to refer back to, please tell me what that is, and I will go back to that. Now, what is agility? So, in contrast to the PMBOK, which is a very thick book with about 10 knowledge areas and approximately 50 processes that we have to go through, agility is about how we behave. So it's about ingraining ways of behavior that exudes agility. And it's a suite of adaptive collaborative behaviors and approaches that are used to deliver rapid customer-focused results. Why? Because that's what the customer is demanding of us. Those are the kind of partners that they want to work with. And the ability to change, even at the last moment, is something that the customer wants. This way of working in teams aims at maximizing customer satisfaction. So we have to be getting to an intimate stage with the customer and understand what their needs are, then taking small amounts of their requirements, working on them, and having a feedback cycle. We do a little bit of incremental work, we get feedback on that, we adjust and move forward. And we only work on the highest priority elements to maximize the value that we have here. Each organization, even though we have these staple activities, we also need to interact with the culture and already existing policies of the organization. So to some degree, you're gonna have to do some tailoring to your organization. So each organization needs to craft the way of doing agility and make it just as flexible as these young ladies in this picture here, working together to come up with a beautiful piece of art. Steve Denning, who's one of my mentors and who's one of thought leaders in agility, says, someone with an agile mindset, and we'll talk about that, agile mindset is important here in the development, focuses on innovation and discovering effective ways of delivering consistent value to the customer. They tend to work in small, self-organized teams that collaborate, and each one of them have an evolved agile mindset So they know ways of trying to maximize from their perspective, and they can exchange, debate, and have conflict, good conflict, by the way, with other members of their teams to come up with better solutions for the customer. So let's move forward here on this. And if you have any questions, remember slide number 9. So I wanted to relate agility to elevate, our major topic. So when we look at the topic of elevate, there's many different definitions. One, as far as looking into a higher level, living in a higher level, moving in a higher level. But I think in reference to the term project management, in today's environment, companies must stay ahead of the curve. And this call for business leaders to focus on particular tasks, how to improve their management processes, align their vision with the outcomes, get better people management and better metrics along the way. And under our normal sequential process, these wonderful shiny shoes refers to the customer who has a problem, and that wonderful starch and press shirt shows a project manager that listens to the customer's problem, aligns a way of doing that from a sequential standpoint, develops a solution, and then goes through and trains and make it operational for the customer, and working in a way to lead the customer to the point that they want at the end. Agility changes it around a little bit. In our ability of elevating businesses, we work all together as a team, as we see in this picture. As we get to the top of the mountain, we all get there together and celebrate. We do this by, instead of collecting all the requirements up front, we collect small amounts of the requirements, deliver on those, show that to the customer, and get regular feedback. We also have incremental development that supports those regular feedbacks from the customer. We have an empowered workforce so instead of being told by a project manager or a program manager, you make the decisions yourself. Imagine that on teams that you've been on, where you had more skin in the game to develop the solutions as we go forward. And then we have an evolved mindset. We'll talk about that later, and servant leadership. So this is where we help others and serve others just because. Now, why agility? Certainly not the standard bearer of doing project management that we had seen from the 70s with waterfall. It's because a different way of delivering needed to happen. I am also doing research in the area of Agile adoption for a PhD dissertation, and the customers not only want this, they are demanding this. They have to have their products out in the marketplace faster in order for them to get the advantage and to survive. So therefore, they are pushing us to agility because it's a survival mechanism. Now, under agility, what comes up is several myths around agility that we hear about. Faster, better, cheaper means that we can slay any problem that's available, or it is a silver bullet for any type of problems you have on projects. And finally, that we have the ability to incorporate change even late in the project. The reality is agility is an option. It can be used to some degree on almost all projects, but most of your frameworks have defined ways of doing them that might limit you from not being able to do them. You have to pick out what's the right agility framework, and believe me, friends, there's many, many, many different kinds. There's probably one that got developed today, and understand under which situation that you can maximize the value. Also, when we're looking at agility here, we need to look at the right environment. So what we have here is a document generated by David Snowden. He used to work in IBM, did this in 1999. He called this a Kneffen curve, hopefully I pronounced it correctly, of how environments work. Now, there could be simple environments you work in, complicated, complex, and chaotic. Most of us want to try to stay away from the chaotic or move to the other 3 states, but let's talk about the first one, simple. Let's say I am in charge of a project, and I want to come up with the overall budget for the project. Well, I can use a spreadsheet to come up with the elements of the projects, collect all the vendor quotes and internal quotes, and I can use that simple process to be successful there. Using the spreadsheet is a best practice. Then if I need to start talking about doing a complicated process, it's not only my projects. At a program level, several projects need to be rolled up into a program. That's complicated, but we know the process along the way. And there are project planning techniques that can help you do that. and it's very known, very sound, and get things done. The area that I'm going to talk about next is where Agile provides its best value is complicated, where the customer kind of knows what they want, but not completely. And as they see more, they understand better and refine their perspective around what they want to deliver. So there is an initial set of stated values of what they want to deliver. We show them things, they probe and sense and respond to that. And we have an emerging solution that eventually ends up being the best solution for the customer. So that's where we work best here. So in comparison, those of you who do waterfall probably gets more value in the complicated area. We get the most value under waterfall 2 in complex, but Agile excels in the complex environment. Now we need to talk about the Agile mindset. That's a combination of beliefs and values that we go through here and operate under agility. We deliver work often. We trust the knowledge workers to find the best solutions amongst ourselves collaboratively, improving the product and process through regular demonstrations and retrospectives for continual improvement, and planning often to implement lessons learned. So these are some of the staples. We'll give you some other areas here. But one of the things to be an Agilist is you have to decide if you think Agile is important. I see a lot of people up there is being Agile and doing Agile. There's thousands, tens of thousands of practices that you can do that would be considered to be Agile practices. You can do that without a change mindset, and you'll get a marginal delivery of agility. You have to decide agility is important, and it's important enough for me to learn, to evolve my mindset, to figure out the best way to deliver agility to my customer set as we go forward here. So we have to decide it is valuable, and then we go on a journey, a lifelong journey to learn more about agility. I find myself spending several training classes per year, 20, 30,000 of investments to learn about the deeper activities in agility. And the more I learn, the more I find still needs to be learned. So this is something that I ask you to think about and start make a decision whether you believe in agility or not, hopefully in the positive direction. Now, when we look at the mindset here, this is just an example. You have to develop your own mindset. One here, you have a perspective. So you're not just looking from your perspective of solving a problem or developing a module. You're looking outward at the vision, what the customer is looking for, patterns, interdependencies, the big picture in your activity, even if you're working in a small element of it. Across from that outward mindset where we look at what the customer wants, and we learn how to work with solutions by working with others. When I go into an Agile environment as a coach and I see, the first thing I look for is the individuals working by themselves. And I'm like, we're not doing agility here. We need to swarm and use collective minds to solve problems as we go forward. Kaizen, which is a term for continual improvement, is something that we have to continually improve how we do and excel on our activities here. A growth mindset, not saying that I'm fixed or I have limits. The only thing that limits me is my attitude and my ability of putting effort to get things done. Last thing is grit and resilience. It's going to be tough, folks. It was tough on waterfall. It's going to be tough to implement agility, but have the grit and the resilience to stick in there and figure out collectively through swarming how to make it work in the organization and deal with the cultural issues. Now, again, this is not the one I'm telling. This is one to maybe look at and consider, but come up with your own Agile mindset as you go forward. Now, let's look at the Agile Manifesto, which originally was developed in 2001 by a set of 17 Agilists. These gentlemen, they left out a few of the sheroes that I would have added in, but they got together and talked about the various frameworks that have been developed about agility. And it was a concern of what really is Agile and what is not. So what they came up with this manifesto. Now, this manifesto has the word software in it because initially agility was all about software. But what it is sort of like a seesaw, where the 4 value statements on the left, we value the things on the left more than we do on the right. Not, we don't negate them, we just value them more. We have to decide on a project basis, which is better. Individual interactions or collaboration over process and tools. working software or a deliverable solution that we can show to the customer over comprehensive documentation such as requirements and design documents. Customer collaboration was working directly with at least one customer representative over a requirements document that got signed off, and that's what we're building to. And responding to change even if it's late versus following what the schedule said at the very early stages of the project. So the things that are on the right are of value and we don't negate them. The things on the left are more valuable to us, and we just need to find the right balance on our project by project basis. Now, in support of that, you say to yourself, well, how do I know if I'm agile or not? There are supporting principles that we follow here to give us a checkpoint of where we are. The highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery. That is the most important aspect or principle that we need to have. Second is here, the others, you can order from 2 to 12 any way that's best for you. But welcoming changes even late in the developing process here and to harness the customer's competitive advantage here. Delivering working, you should look at the software word here, change it to solutions, because we're doing more than software these days, but delivering working software more frequently from a couple weeks to a couple months. Business people and developers working together to come up with solutions on a regular basis. Then we want to go and we build things through motivated people. So we have members of the teams later on we'll talk about that are coaches called Scrum Masters in the case of Scrum that helps people stay motivated, and we motivate ourselves. When you're motivated, you tend to give your best effort. The most effective way of communicating is face-to-face. Going here, we'll work our way quickly through 7 through 12. Working software is a measure of accomplishment. Verse is where are we with respect to the schedule, the budget, or any earned value metrics. How the product has evolved is how we look at it. And that's a major mind shift in how we plan and measure for the adjustment. Agile processes promote sustainable development between the customer and the team, continuous attention to technical excellence, even the ones that exist in the company and those that we think are best adding value to the team. Simplicity, we try to do things in the simplest fashion incrementally and build it up to solve the complex problems. It's the art of maximizing the work not done. That is how we address waste on agile projects. So the best architectures and requirements emerge from self-organized teams. The people who know how to get it built should make the decisions on how it should be organized around work. And then finally, at regular intervals, the team will reflect on how to become more effective. We call those retrospectives, and we improve after each and every iteration of the project. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me on that. Now, behind that, I talked about agile practices, and I said I could put a diagram to fill up the names here, but there's certain characteristics here that falls into a life cycle that we're all familiar with. One, I'm going to say sprint zero, which is similar to the initiation phase. There are several ways that we go through to set up the team, infrastructure, assess how feasible it is, the architectures, and decide on whether this is worth doing. Then there is product development. Notice I didn't say project planning, it's product backlog. It's the elements and features of the product that we need to generate here. Then we go and put that in more planning activities where we do planning and estimating, where we use unique aspects such as planning poker, user stories, and ultimate hours here to come up with the size of work so we can fit them in certain areas here. At a business level, there is release schedule planning, so we understand past each sprint what's going to be coming next. Then there's sprint execution, where we execute as a team or swarm to come up with the answers. We have our review with the customer to verify that what's being delivered is correct. And then we have a retrospective sprint where we say, how well did we do? And what are we going to do to improve going forward? So elevating practices. So these practices, if I break them into categories, there are team practices that help us operate better as a team, such as having a product owner or a team member here, or a Scrum coach or collective ownership. There's development activities that we do to evolve the product. Automated testing is huge in agility. DevOps is an environment to help for rapid delivery. And paired programming is again how we do things in more than one activities. Spikes is something we talk about doing here from an experimental standpoint to find out what's best. Then some of you, I hope, is on the line here doing more than just software. There's other engineering capabilities that have been evolving here lately. Team governance, team rules, it comes up. Agile contracting in government is a big issue. Trying to do things iteratively and then having a fixed contract, big problem. Concurrent development is big in automotive, design thinking, lean manufacturing, lean portfolio, where we, instead of funding departments to do the work, we fund something called a release train or a delivery vehicle as needed, and we can change that instantaneously as we go forward. So all of these are other things, if you have any questions on them, please reach out to me after we have the presentation. Now, we have self-organized teams. In other words, the team decides what we're going to work on and how we would do it. Again, when I walk into a room to see people who say they're operating with agility, if I see people off in their corner for more than a few moments working on something, I would say that we could do some improvement in agility. Agility is a game of, similar to Scrum, where we all do it collectively. It may sound like we have our heads down in the muck, but we all have a role in that muck to move and progress the ball forward. Now, I also mentioned servant leadership. The gentleman named Greenspan out of AT&T back in the early 60s and 70s came up with this concept. And he talked about it's helping others and serving others. And then with their increased capacity, they can be more productive in the organization. Now, when this started out, this was never part of anybody's performance review. And actually today, it's not written out very well to be part of somebody's performance review, but it's necessary in an agile environment, particularly when you have a set of organized people at the lowest level with an equal vote trying to decide on how to get things done. People will argue in intense arguments, which are necessary to get the outcomes that we're looking for. But then afterwards, sometimes there might be hurt feelings. So we need to have somebody who serves as a servant leader, who's listening, observing, understanding what's going on, shows empathy in any type of situation. They heal. They see people who are angry at each other. They sit them down. They work on it so that they can move forward and on other issues going forward. They have awareness on what's going on at any stage, conceptualization to be able to look around corners and understand what's going forward, some foresight because they've been in the industry for a while. This is not a role where we have the authority to tell people what to do. You have to persuade them what to do. And you're willing to do things that you are more than capable to do and more just to help to move things along. You may be a person of capabilities for senior program level activities, but you're setting up meetings and you're coordinating the outcomes of the notes because that helps the team. We have the commitment to the growth of the individuals because they're worth it. That's who we want to work with. And finally, building a community. Always, because at some point, as a servant leader or as a scrum master, you want to step back and move on to the next team. And then these teams will take the skill sets and the behavior that you have taught them and start doing it on their own self basis. Now, I mentioned a coaching role of a scrum master and a coach. This person's job is to enable the team to get the best of their performance within the framework that we are talking about. So as we go through here, the scrum master or coach stands in the center of the room and observes, sort of like a lifeguard, and he looks for deficiencies in many areas. If they go up and they see a problem in lean practitioners, agile lean practitioners, then they will step through and start asking Socratic questions. Okay, I see you doing A and B. Have you considered doing C? Well, what about doing A in addition to D? And to spark the thoughts in their mind. You may also find people who are not very knowledgeable, so you have to teach and mentor. You need to show technical masteries on how to build the products and using agility. In some cases, show examples. At some point in your senior level of being a coach, you need to show business mastery of how you've been able to deliver agility within a business domain, and a transformational process, being able to talk and with people and try to give them guidance on how to transform of the current state with limited or no agility to a state with agility and the path and its supporting factors along the way. As we start looking at Scrum and Agilist, facilitations is a common framework and skill, but the professional coaching, they ask that you learn how to be a professional coach and implement this along the way. I myself am ICF certified as a associate certified coach, life coach, executive coach along the way, and it does help your perspective on how you interact with people to help them come out with some solutions without telling them what to do. Now, as we go forward here, though, what I've talked to you about to date was just the interactions at the team level. But here, really recently, the businesses said, hey, you know, this stuff you're talking about down at the team level, we could probably expand out here and use it at the organizational level. So the term business agility has started to emerge here, where we have agile operations, agile finance teams, agile HR, agile marketing. And it's all about sensing what's going on in the marketplace, responding it and do prototyping for iterative development, adapting from what we've seen in the situation, all adds up to what's considered to be a series of activities that are business agility. So these are common topics and frameworks that you can learn on and become knowledgeable. And also, too, again, as we're looking at this, we're taking on different type projects under agility. No longer are we just doing software. The government is asking us to have complex embedded systems. Drones are going up that are being developed with a lot of agility framework capabilities here. And a lot of systems that are more than just software, and we have to adapt to that. Now, by bringing in hardware and firmware, brings in some more limitations, but those limitations here can be addressed and then go forth with agility here. But the key thing is to do things more rapidly, maximizing value, lean out the process, and always have an eye towards innovation and growth. Now with this, you probably say the old command and control approach probably doesn't work. That is true. Got to change. We have to adjust. We don't have to scrap everything, but we have to adjust. Some of the things the leadership now needs to also change at the highest level of the organization and the individual contributor. Remember, we said we're going to have self-organized teams. So with self-organized teams, you at the individual level needs to develop and grow your leadership skills by giving the ability to give directions and empower people, operate with integrity, think about innovation at all points, operate with a certain cadence or sense of urgency here, and engaging with others to come up with solution. So this is all things that can be learned along the way. Now, getting off the stage here, a few parting thoughts here. As you go about developing your growth path to agility, first of all, make the decision about agility and decide what are you willing to put into agility and what are you willing to invest. Hopefully you'll become a lifelong learner in agility. You'll find the more you learn, the more there is to learn. Be a servant leader. It doesn't hurt to help somebody. Remember, the whole organization is a value chain. If you help one person become better, the whole organization becomes better. Understanding the values, principles, and practices of agility, mastering and collaborating those practices and principles on projects here. Work on projects, folks. Doing the training itself is very simple and straightforward, but you really don't get to understand how to put this in practice until you're working on projects. Then we want to integrate those leadership concepts into your concepts. And then finally, incorporate your agile learning into a suite of client skills to maximize delivery of rapid change to your customer. So in closing here, I just wanted to say that we had 5 outcomes that we said comes from agility. Hopefully I've given you some food for thought around how to get there. We'll have a white paper afterwards here. But agility is about harnessing the collaboration of people and frequent deliveries to learn and adapt and adjust your solutions, minimize risk and cycle time, maximize return and customer value in a volatile global workplace. And back to the topic at hand, elevate your clients and stakeholders through targeted use of agility concepts along the way. Now, with that said, I'd like to end my conversation by thank you for the time that you spent here listening to me. It's been a pleasure for you to speak to you on this topic. I look forward to the questions. If you get the opportunity, please reach out to Caltech with our series of courses. I teach system engineering, project management, PMP certification, in addition to agility here. Love to have you. We try to solve the problems that you have beyond just the training here along the way here. And with that, I said, and thank you, and turn it back over to Michael.
Nate, thanks. That was excellent. I love that. It reminds me of when, back in my consulting days, is we work with the organizations and the clients, and we have process redesign principles were kind of the mantra: eliminating waste, organizing for outcomes, demand pull, visual controls, customer supplier integration. And those align perfectly with Agile, don't you think?
Yeah, it does. Agile is about, it's customer centric, and as the environment changes and evolves for the customer and makes it more demanding, we must respond in kind to make sure that we can deliver in whatever new concept or dimension that's necessary.
Yeah. So you mentioned working on PMPs. There are so many certifications that are out there for all types of project management and Agile. Most of the people I think on this call, a lot of them are PMPs, might be a few Agilists. What do you recommend to folks for what should they have in their toolkit? What kind of accreditation?
Okay. Well, first of all, I try to be mindful to your pocketbook, so I don't want to spend up all your money. But what I would say here, if you haven't taken the PMP, the PMP in itself has changed quite significantly, so that to pass the PMP, instead of just the PMBOK, there are 3 other Agile resources here that is used to help you become a project management professional. So you and yourself will evolve to become more Agile by doing that. There is the PMI's certified Agile certified practitioner with ACP certification, gives a overview of what's going on. A popular one is the Scrum Master certification through Scrum Alliance. Here recently, PMI has developed a partnership and relationship with Discipline Agile, and they have a Scrum Master certification. Actually, that's a course that we'll be teaching here within Caltech quite frequently here. And as I said, find your own path. If you want to go through the leadership path, there are many different organizations out there that have the skill set. I would recommend looking into PMI and Scrum Alliance first. There is IC Agile, there is scrum.org. All of these have different ways of you getting certified and learning. Some cases they require you to take training. In other cases, it's just about proving that you know the knowledge by taking tests. So that's a better way of maximizing the use of your dollar here along the way. But anything that helps you to be a Agile leader and a better participant on the team would be something I would push you towards. And I guess there are hundreds of those along the way.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we've just launched Springboard PMP, which is the PMP exam prep, as Caltech's an authorized training provider for PMI. Nate is teaching that 35-hour program. Jerry Brown is also teaching, and then as Nate said, the Discipline Agile is coming up this fall. We're open for any questions. You want to refer back to any of the bits that Nate went over. We'll throw the slides back up. We do have a question. Are there PDUs to report for this webinar? Since we're probably going to clock in just under an hour, that there's not, but we wish there could be. So Nate, one of the other things that you mentioned, we'll see if any other questions come in, is conflict. And so a lot of groups, either they have a almost like a positive culture of conflict. And what I mean by that is I think of Intel, who, they're a case study in creative conflict, where people have ideas, they present those, and they get torn down and then kind of built back up. And everybody knows that that's a part of the culture. They're all taught how to do that. There are also organizations that, whether they're hardcore waterfall, trying agile, you'll have teams start to conflict. And that's kind of the stuff we kind of want to have. We want the discussions, but we also need to manage that thoughtfully. Do you have any advice for people as they start out kind of thinking about facilitation and conflict management?
Well, I have two bits of advice. One as a contributor in the process, one as a facilitator of a meeting. One as a contributor in the process here, be mindful of others' feelings and being respectful. And sometimes a curt statement without any context can be disrespectful. Now, one way to respectfully give feedback is, I would say, Mike, I don't understand your concept of what you have here along the way here. Could you please, you're not coming across very competent in this presentation. Can you please go back over and give it to me in more detail? That's respectful. If I said, Mike, I think your idea is dumb and so are you, that is definitely, and as engineers, people say these kind of things and they say, oh, well, you got to have tough skin to be an engineer. But that's not the kind of conflict we want. We want to have conflict that's going to, as you say, break things down and build it up. So as a contributor, be mindful. Don't cut people off, things like that. Now, as a facilitator, just because it's a heated discussion doesn't mean it's not going in a positive direction. So listen to what's going on and the tenor of what's going on. And sometimes it's going to get really, really tough. It's almost like they're ready to come to blows, but you need to step in at a certain point. Now that takes a certain learned experience from being around from a senior standpoint, and also knowing the people that are involved. There's some people just, even when they get out of bed, they start yelling and screaming because that's their personality. And others are very quiet and timid. Knowing the members of the team and know how to balance that breaking point where you need to move forward is important. But conflict is good. As you said, Intel has that a creative conflict environment. Dell has an environment where they allow employees to go off for 80 hours and work on some concept of interest to them and come back and present that to teams. And there's other Agile frameworks that has that. We hear about hackathons and other activities where people can go and just try new things out along the way here. So I would say, just remember, conflict doesn't have to be bad unless you want to make it, unless you want to be mean. And why be mean? That the world would be much better if we could all be just nice to each other.
Yeah, life's too short, huh? We do have another question on back to our Agile manifesto, collaboration over contract. I'm going to throw this slide up, but the question from Christopher is can you elaborate more on collaboration over contract? These days requires contractual obligations to protect the buyer and seller.
Okay. So I said at two phases, when we're referring to in the Agile manifesto, the contracts that we're talking about there is a requirements document. So a requirements document tends to say, we have collected all the requirements written down here, and we have, and also within the project plan, it'll be delivered by a certain date here. And what happens with this situation is we lock in early what we're trying to deliver along the way. Now, that can be dangerous. I don't know, how many of you have built a custom house and not changed the requirements before it goes into when you move in? As you see more of things evolving, new ideas pop in. And also the business world is changing. So what was relevant 6 months ago is totally obsolete today. So under contract management here at the team level, remember when this manifesto was written back in 2001, it's about the contracts needed for a small team of no more than 10 people. So the contracts is requirements documents, project plans, test plans. So what happens is to guard against the situation of the customer getting at the end and said, this is not what I need to do my job. And the team says, wait a minute. We have your signature on this requirements document here. We have your signature on this plan. We followed the plan here. But unfortunately, after they sign the plan, what do in Waterfall? We tell the customer to go away. Let us work on our work, and we'll show you at the end, no incremental views of what's going on. we show it to you at the end, and that's where we run into the problem here. And that's why we want to have a customer there to see the solution evolve and give their opinion along the way. Now, I recognize in documents, particularly government contracts, fixed price contracts here, they are binding between two or more parties to make sure that everybody understands what's going on. But we're talking about the contracts within a team reference here. But as we get out to those larger contracts, people are working on how to come up with more agile contracts, given the fact that the government is doing more work with agility here, and how to frame it in ways that aligns with the agile principles, so we can have the same sort of protection along the way, but yet it allows for some level of flexibility by having in statements that allow us to make deviations from where we started. Hopefully I answered your question.
Thanks. Yeah, Christopher, let us know if that's what you're looking for. The you're right. So much has changed, and I talked to our client companies, and that agile contracting has not only shaken up things, but it really requires the delivery organizations to think differently. That now they're not being told what to go off and build. They've got to start to discover that for themselves and interact with their customers in ways that they weren't before. So everybody's really having to add to the repertoire of interpersonal skills, which is important. There's a lot of change. Let's see. So RDSO, the discussion on agile contracts, how would we effectively handle major changes to address the changes the client is making when you have established the scope, started the work, and they start changing the course?
Okay, so typically in agility, it's tough to have major changes because we do things in increments. So we don't. So what we do is we build off an initial set of requirements here, and we develop that, and then we get some additional requirements from the customer off the product backlog and build the next level. So if the customer has any concerns, it's more than likely the last version of what we delivered by itself exclusively, or how it affects the other parts here. And we can triage that more easily to trace back to it by the fact that we can look at how stable the last version was, and what did we change in the most recent implementation, and how does that affect other areas here. So instead of doing the big bang way of doing things, we do things in smaller increments, evolving more and more as we go forward here along the way to get to solution. So it's tough to get into a situation where a big change caused a problem. It's more than likely what we did last, and we could back off of that quickly and then figure out how to change that increment to make it work going forward.
Great. We have time for about one more question. And Artie, let us know if that worked for you. Nate, I'll throw one up. From a recent conversation we had, you've got an organization who is working in predominantly waterfall. All releases and product managers are kind of waterfall. There are some pockets of, or let's say islands of excellence of agilists, but their planning doesn't mesh yet. How do you get those two groups to start aligning on their work products and their tools, so there's collaborative planning? What's a starting point?
Well, I mean, there's two ways of doing this, or a hybrid of the two. One, we need to recognize integration of Agile. Each one of the principles and practices are very simple if looked at by themselves. But every time we try to integrate it into how we do work currently is a change management activity. Change management has to change the mindsets, the procedures, the culture of what's going on. So I think it's you're trying to interact and try to have a transformation to agility in most levels. You're going to have somebody who's in charge of the change process, that has a plan, that talks about the right communications at the right time. Who is going to be in charge of it? Who are those powerful stakeholders that can stand up and say, this is the right thing for us to go forward with? And then as we go forward here and make those changes here, make a decision on an individual level that, whether those changes are going to work for you, and you buy in here. So now also that approach of how we want to do the change can be done at the ground roots level or at the executive level. So I'll give you an example of the executive level. And I'll tell you, ironically, the change in the behavior. About 10 years ago, I went into work for a company back in IIL, and they had me go to this conference for on agility and to talk to Mars Candy, which is candy and pet food, which I never understood the combination. And I had a meeting with folks who were going to be prospective product owners. And I described the role of the product owner. And the people said, let me get this straight. You want me to be part of the technology development team here on a regular basis? Yeah. After I answered yes, half the people walked out. Okay. So then a couple of years later, they decided to change their strategy. They had their town meeting of where we're going to go to next. The leader of the organization says, we are going forth with a new capability as we go forward here. Agility will be a staple of how we do development here. We will establish a center of excellence to support you along the way. Primarily, we think that should be done in working on software development or business intelligence. But if you have some other application, we'll support you there. We'll invest in you in training and agility here, but it is important, get on board. Now, after that, our company could not get enough time slots to put training in. And this is from the business partners and the technology partners, because the right person said the right message. And when they said get on board, that's everything typically aligns. Now, there's typically one or two people in the organization that can do that. But if once they say get on board. Now, there's grassroots. Grassroots is where somebody goes through and tries every possible way to solve a quick problem. That they try waterfall, they try everything else. And then they reach out and say, hey, let's try something from a Kanban perspective or a Scrum perspective. And they get it done. And then all of a sudden they sit with their boss and, you know, that was pretty good of you to get that done. I didn't see a way of doing it. What did you do? Well, I am an Agilist by heart. And I knew that if I did things from an Agile standpoint, even if, by the way, that could be, breaking the law, but I gave it a shot and it worked. He said, really? Walk me through that. The next thing, that manager went into the staff meeting and said, guess what? I got this guy, Nate, he's a little crazy in general, but, he used this Agile concept and man, it worked. It got stuff done faster and more valuable for the customer here. I think we should look into that. And then that program manager looks at it and says, let me sit down here. Let's have a three-way with Nate. So, and all of a sudden say, hey, we're going to try a pilot project exclusively using Agile principles and see what happens. And then that's successful. And then the second one is successful. So as you can see from the top and the bottom, if you say it at the top, everybody gets online. You do it from the bottom, it's slower, but it's gradual, but it grows onto the top. You have to figure out which is best. And also, too, if you're an Agilist who's passionate about it, and I'm not going to tell you to lose your job, but you need to figure out what sword you want to fall on. Sometimes you need to stand out and stand alone and say, hey, agility is really going to help us in the future here. And I really think that we should do that, and ask for a skip level meeting with a VP or director. Not good for a career path, but it could be, could not be. But if you really are that passionate about agility, step out of your comfort zone to get things done. Those are my recommendations, not being employed by anybody right now, actually.
Except with us. So Nate, that's a great story. And I love the point of embracing the change management, because long ago, organizational change was always kind of the first thing to de-scope. Was never paid attention. I think that's largely changed. if anybody out there, you're an organization that does not embrace change management and the power of it, embrace those people. They need to be a part of this mix. Last couple questions. We should be able to zip right through these. Do you have a library of tools in addition to the approach, reporting, KPIs, retrospectives?
Well, through our classes, my main course, I have a series of articles that we have here. When you start talking about tools, it goes through the roof.
Of tools.
There's a lot of tools. Yeah. Now, also, there are some of the most valuable tools are open source tools within the agility community, and a lot of people can't use, ironically, to help with the testing aspects of things. So there is a lot. I mean, we can give you I can send Mike a series of articles, and if you want to be an agilist, again, you're gonna have to learn. You got to dig. You got to put your detective hat on. Now, I don't want to say what I used to talk about some of the old detectives on TV shows like Barnaby and things like that, which shows you how old I am. But let's say CSI Miami here, Horatio King, you whip off those glasses and you say, how can I use agility to solve this problem here? And dig in, ask people what's going on, and come up with yourself. That's the process of your mindset. That will help you to figure out, so you be a self-sustaining. You won't have to ask Nate or anybody to give you a set of tools. You know it's out there in the universe, and I'm going to find it. So, I mean, again, that's the kind of a detective, or like I like to refer to myself, is like, be a gangster. Try to go out there and try to figure out, you have a problem you want to solve, and you're going to get it done by one means or another. I mean, if you say you're that passionate, put it on the line.
Yeah, I agree. That's right. Yeah, we have a question about suggesting change management resources. There are ones you can get through SHRM, the Society for Human Resource. There's Process. There's others. And we'll send out a list of some of the resources and readings. I think that should be definitely a part of Elevated. As we said, we want to bring people different resources that expand what they're doing and expand what you're doing in your career. In our programs, we often will have resource lists that are almost like evergreen list of articles, science, sometimes even science-based, research-based, presentations from others. And so, yeah, you have access to that definitely if you're in a program through Elevated. I love the idea of making some of the change pieces come up next.
And if anybody's interested in standard change management, there is books and curriculum outside of what we do. I don't really think that's our major space that I could refer you to. Similar to the PMI, there is a change management book of knowledge of how you can go and institute a change, or communicating the change, setting up for the change, who should be the leaders, who should be the captains, and things of that nature. So I could pass it on to Michael.
Yeah, and if you want recommendations from kind of the folks in the big four firms and their change management practices, they're super structured. They know what they're doing. Be happy to introduce anybody, no matter what region you're in. That's about it for the time that we have. Nate, thank you very much. That was incredible. And people have also said, hey, that was great. We have our next session. We try to do these monthly, about the third Tuesday of the month. Alan Dunn, who chairs our next generation supply chain programs, is going to be here. Been with us for a long time. I won't say how many decades, but I don't want him to feel old, but he knows it. We're going to talk about risk and what that means as you also develop kind of a repertoire for building either a tolerance for risk, or understanding when things have maybe gotten too far, or how to plan for uncertainties, like things that would never happen and disrupt your world. That should be in August. And then after that, we're going to have one on the project management professional certification with Jerry Brown. So watch out for the elevated notes that may come to you from PMI or from us. Be sure to subscribe. There's some links in the chat window. Thank you again for your time. We know it's a precious resource for you. We will let you go. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.